everyone's tuning in. This is the GOATS podcast show, guys. Okay, at Talking Sports. My name is Kyle Bernard.
I am Brandon Hinton.
And together we make up the duo that is the GOATS podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So just kind of giving a little bit of rundown on us. Myself, born and raised in Western Massachusetts, Springfield area to be exact. Grew up playing sports my whole entire life. Got involved in hockey at a very early age. From there, ended up picking up volleyball once I got to high school. So played hockey and volleyball throughout high school. And then went on and enlisted in the United States Air Force in 2008. And that is where I met this lovely gentleman that sits across my screen from me.
Yes, sir.
So run me down some of your background, sir.
All right, yeah. So I'll just say I was born in 1987. They call that the year of the GOATs. I mean, I don't know if they say that or not. Same thing, played sports all my life. Really stuck with football, had a little basketball in there as well. I did go collegiate, went to Oklahoma Panhandle State for a year. The NCAA clearinghouse decided that I was not going to play football for the most part of that season. That's okay because we went 1-12, and that one game was because the one team actually they played an eligible player. So so we were really 0-13 or 0-11, whatever it was. And then that was 2006. So by that time, 2007, I started getting interested in the Air Force and decided to go in. And we didn't know this until later on, but we actually were in the same area, same group, 2008 in October, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. We were
exactly.
in the same basic.
Yep.
And then
the very last 6.5 week basic flight.
Yes, and I feel like they went harder on us because they knew it was the last 6.5 weeks. I don't know.
They had that leeway at the end, that
yeah.
3.5 week waiting period.
Yeah, I did security forces. I actually had orders to Okinawa at first, but my wife had it. I think she had a heart palpitation, so they didn't have the right facilities. We ended up moving to Boston. Sat on a night shift for a while, and then I came up to Alpha. I think I already met you by then, kind of a little bit.
Yeah, we had some changeover experiences, I think.
And then I got on they did that big, I remember that was a big thing, that big switch up. They did a big switch up. People got moved to different flights. I got moved to daytime. And really, that's where me and you and our buddy Adam, that's where we really kind of gelled and became what we are now.
Correct.
And then obviously now I'm out. And just going to school. I got one more class left, trying to get that class out of the way, and that's it.
Nice. Well, congrats on that. I mean, I just finished up mine. I'm just waiting on the degree in the mail, so I just finished it up a couple weeks ago. So I know that last downhill feeling of getting those last classes out of the way. But so yeah, for me, I'm back in the Western Mass area myself. Still wearing the uniform. Luckily, very proud and happy to still be wearing it. So. Yeah, and you happen to be a groomsman in my wedding, which I was honored to have you a part of. So our friendship goes back essentially all the way to 2009 when we met at Hanscom, and one of the big things that we bonded over right away is being Cowboys fans in Massachusetts. And as a person who is a proud masshole, it is very hard to claim that title when you do not support the New England Patriots. So
I don't know how you did it, man.
We bonded over that pretty quickly. So once I found other Cowboys fans, I kind of stuck to them like glue, and fortunately enough, you were one of them. So
we had a nice little click there too for a little bit.
We did.
I will say I didn't say where I was from. I was from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. That's where I'm currently at right now.
Nice.
So you might hear some Texas takes. You might hear some Oklahoma takes. Just in a southern Midwestern style takes.
You're just well versed is all it is. Well versed, polished, well rounded. So we had talked about this podcast for, I want to say, the better part of going on probably like 4 years now.
Yeah.
And it had kind of just started off as like a joke. It started off as then like a running joke where we would bring it up casually from time to time, either in just we were bored and wanted something to do, to then talking about frustrations on watching different sports shows and hearing all these outrageous takes and kind of just right, exactly. And so essentially it kind of just got to a boiling point, I guess, for us, where we said, why the hell not? We don't have anything else really to do, and I mean, this is going to be nothing but fun for you and I. So we do this casually through text and phone conversations anyway. Why not kind of make it a little bit more official? So this has been in the making probably for about 4 years. I think we had the name even picked out almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So we finally were able to make that jump, and I'm excited to get started. So kind of just highlighting what we're going to be talking about today. NFL free agency, NHL, what the current playoff scenarios look like if we're lucky enough to get to see any of them, as well as the NBA playoff structure, what it currently sits at right now, and hopefully we get to see some of those games too. Everyone's well aware of the global pandemic that we're dealing with right now, and sports. Yeah, exactly. Not having any sports available has also provided us this platform to say, all right, well, what time better than now when there's literally nothing else to do? So, and then at the end of the segment, we'll get into a little bit of an inside joke that we'll get to share, and then kind of turn it into our special segment that we plan on having for the foreseeable future. And then we'll kind of just close out with some thoughts at the end. So, if you want to take it away, sir, NFL free agency, it's been a lot more active than I thought it would be, to be quite honest with you.
Let me pull it up. I actually looked at the, before we get into the bigger story, which would have been Tom Brady, last week, I actually pulled up who's left. And there's an interesting name at number 1, according to ESPN. Jadeveon Clowney has not been picked up yet. Okay,
so I remember seeing that he was on the market, and I'm actually, like you, a little surprised, not even that he hasn't been picked up, but that there really hasn't been any links to any team, to his name. Like, there almost seems to be no, I don't want to say no interest, but thus far there hasn't really been any chatter involving his name at all where he possibly might end up. And I found that very surprising, because a lot of teams were saying at the beginning of the year that the defensive line was going to be a big issue for a lot of teams coming into this next season. And for his name to not even be a priority for some of these teams is a little shocking.
I mean, I'm pulling up his stats. The dude, 172 solo tackles, man. Like, that's
a busy workload.
He's not a scrub, It's 32 sacks. He's not a scrub, and it's scary to think. I mean, he's had injury issues, but there's got to be. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but there's got to be something else going on there, because he's the number 1. He hasn't been picked up. Everybody needs an edge rusher. We need it. I mean, we don't really need an edge rusher. Talking about the Cowboys, but I could think of like 20 teams right now that could use an edge rusher.
Absolutely, especially a guy that is so quick off the line that he is. And I mean, like you said, I know he's had injuries throughout his career, but production has never seemed to been the area in which he's lacked. It's always been just the issue of staying healthy. So I don't know if maybe that's kind of the point where he's at in that career, where now teams are looking at him and saying, is this more a gamble than it is a benefit for us to just reach out and grab this guy?
Right. Because there was talk that the Cowboys might be looking at him, but then of course we went and got Mr. I want to make terroristic threats in the airport, Alden Smith, and
So I was going to bring him up, and I mean, obviously, stating that we're already Cowboys fans, there will be some unapologetic bias from time to time when we talk about football, but so on NFL.com, if you look at the transactions page, they have the Alden Smith signing, but then immediately above that, it states that there is a commissioner. It says reserve / commissioner suspension minimum 1 year.
Oh yeah, because he hasn't been put back in the league yet. He's still technically suspended.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure like I was reading that correctly. So he's still going to have to go through the appeals process of getting reinstated into the league, but the Cowboys still have that right to go ahead and sign him regardless.
And that's like I was saying the other night when we were texting last night. It's like if he even shows, I'm not saying he's not going to show up to camp, but if he can't, if they reinstate him and then they'll suspend him, that could be a possibility.
Right, exactly. I mean, I know he put out on his Instagram that he's blessed and he's excited for this new opportunity. And I mean, I wish the guy nothing but the best, whether he would have signed with Dallas or anyone else. But it's man, it's tough. And I mean, you've seen like with the Antonio Brown fiasco that happened this past year. I would hate for him to come back, or like a Josh Gordon scenario where you get all these suspensions, you get all these chances lined up again, and then you just come back in and then nothing happens. You just throw it, all away again just to do a repeated pattern of getting suspended. Luckily for him, I believe this is the first time he's trying to come back to get reinstated, is it not? So, he doesn't seem like he's a habitual type. He stayed away from the game for a bit, so hopefully he's got all his ducks in a row coming into camp this year.
I know there are a couple of camps that has said, a couple of reports that said he's on the up as far as getting away from it, because it was alcoholism that he had the most problem with. Right. And they were saying that he's on the up and up as far as trying to heal and deal with that. Now, I will say, out of all the NFL cities to pick, Dallas is probably not the best, because down there in Texas, they drink nothing but whiskey. Right. And they drink it all the time. And then the Dallas Metro's got a nice little nightlife, so I'm sure, temptation's going to be there. I just hope he figures it out. I will throw you two more on the still available list, because it's pretty interesting, especially when you talk about what we're dealing with as far as in Dallas with Dak Prescott. Correct. Cam Newton and Jameis Winston.
Yes, yeah. It's hard to think that, knowing what we know about Cam, the way he came into the league and all the success he had in college before coming into the league, that he would have gotten to a point in his career where he wasn't really dictating his future. He's not in the driver's seat. Right. He didn't have the luxury of doing what Brady did, stepping away from the team on his own terms, and then literally hand selecting where he wants to go. I still think he's a hell of a quarterback, and I think he's insanely talented. I really just think that his situation in Carolina, that relationship just ran its course.
Yeah, and I understand that. I wonder.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of it had to do when Ron Rivera left. Like, yes. It was almost it almost seemed like you could see it on the field where it was like, well, what is left here for me? Am I even this new coach's guy? Mm-hmm. It just, he's a competitor, and he was still out there doing what he does best. But I definitely think that course is completely run out. I think a change of scenery was necessary. Mm-hmm. The question is, where's his next best fit?
I thought Chicago. I think everybody thought Chicago. The only issue, here's going back to what you were saying, I wondered if the reason why he's not getting picked up has a lot to do with his attitude. And I'm not saying that like in some cipher way or some cryptic way. I'm saying that motherfucker boasted a lot. Excuse my language. He boasted a lot every time he got in the end zone. So yeah. I don't know, maybe, and also he is injury prone as his later. And I didn't even realize he's 31 years old, so he's like up there in our age range. And I hurt every time I get up, so I can only imagine what he feels like.
It's funny because the whole debate on whether the natural position of the quarterback staying in the pocket, becoming a pocket passer, is that going to be the new trend now? Because you've seen guys that have ventured outside the pocket, gotten really good at scrambling outside, running for yardage, but taking hits to get those yards. Cam was one of those guys that really projected that style of quarterback forward, like in the early 2010s when he really started to gain pace in the league. But I always forget how massive of a human being.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He was huge,
so huge, and for him, it's got to be hard to want to or tell himself to tone it back, because he's probably thinking to himself, I know I can take these dudes' hits because I'm just as big, if not bigger, than some of these linebackers that are trying to hit me. And then don't even get started on the DBs. Like, he's outweighing them by at least a good 50, 60, 70 pounds, depending on who's lined up with him. But, for his style of play, I just feel like, and, forgive me for not knowing the whole ins and outs of the Carolina offensive line, but it definitely didn't seem like he had the best of help on the offensive line in Carolina.
I want to say, just to let y'all know, we're guys okay at talking sports. I want to say,
this is the full beauty of this podcast is you're not going to get either one of us claiming to be an insider.
I'm an expert.
The word expert is not going to escape our lips at any point, and this is the beauty of it, is we're just literally, it's almost like we're outside around a campfire just shooting the shit. Exactly. Or for our veterans listening, back in the patrol car on shift, on a 12-hour shift, just shooting the shit. This is all we would do, is just go back and forth at traffic enforcement selectives. So, but sorry, getting back to what you were saying as far as Cam being comfortable enough to scramble and being, just forgetting how big of a human he is.
And like you said, he probably thought he could take those hits. And for the longest, people were telling him that. We were all telling him that, as far as like, not us, but the media was saying, you're big enough to take those hits. And he took them, and unfortunately, they took their toll. And it just sucks because he was good.
Yeah.
Also, another thing, that Super Bowl where he didn't jump on that ball, that's always gonna. That's my lasting impression of him, is not jumping on that fumble.
I remember watching that game, and I'm fairly certain you and I talked afterwards, and that was the first thing we said was like, dude, that's the biggest game of your life.
Yeah.
Dude, I would have separated both my shoulders trying to get on that ball. Now, again, obviously, no pun intended, I'm Monday morning quarterbacking it, and I'm not the one in that scenario and on that field. But man, was that not a great look? Like that was tough, and I don't think, like you said, I don't think that that's ever really gonna go away fully. But I honestly think, like, no matter where he goes, I think he's gonna have a good year.
Right.
Mind you, he at least has maybe a 1A target to throw it to, and he has some moderate protection on the O-line, or at least what he was used to in Carolina. Yeah. Now, me personally, with the teams that are left, I really think he would be a great fit down in Miami, but I know that the Dolphins are projected to draft Tua Tagovailoa, so I mean,
but you could get Tua and still have Cam, and have Cam mentor him in that Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type role,
Exactly. And because of the injury situation that Tua is in, they don't know where he's truly at in that injury recovery. Why would you not sign Cam, almost saying, like, this is our guy, and allow Tua to really sit and rest? So for at least a year, this kid is doing nothing but learning the system, learning how to be a pro from a guy who's done it a decent amount of times and who's been pretty darn good at it. And then let him loose that second year and truly let him compete with Cam. And if anything, this just gives Cam that year to showcase that he's still got it. He can still be a guy. And then maybe that puts him in the driver's seat to dictate where he wants to go in the future, or re-sign there in Miami if they're happy with him.
Right. If there's one thing I hate when teams draft quarterbacks and throw them in the fire right away. I like the veteran approach. I like having that veteran first for 100%.
I'm sorry to cut you off. History has told us time and time again that it's going to pay off by letting your guy sit and learn and grow. There's so much. It's so funny to me that teams will draft a guy and they'll come out and say, like, we're not rushing this process. And then week 4, this dude's wiping the sweat off his palms because he's going under center third quarter because management's like, we're 1-3 coming into this week, or we're 0-3 coming into this week. We don't have a win on the record. We're in the 4th week. We're only 10 points back. Get the rookie in there, see if he can make something happen. I mean,
ruin careers.
Yeah. I just don't understand. I mean, and again, history has shown. Tom Brady. Ever heard of him? He's kind of good. He's got a good resume. That's a good story. Aaron Rodgers. Ever heard of him? He's a bad man according to some people. So why would you not follow the blueprints these guys? That's working, right? That all these franchises are having good success in. Rome wasn't built in a day. So I like you said, I don't understand the mentality approach to get him in there now and then ruin this kid either mentally or physically. And then it's almost like you just wasted that high draft pick completely.
And then on top, so I'll throw in one more. Just to throw him in there.
Yeah.
Get off of this share screen shit. Sorry. That out. Just because, I mentioned his name, and we also talk about Tom Brady. I'm just going to say Jameis Winston once, and I'm going to say this. 30 touchdowns is incredible.
That's a lot.
But in the same vein, Same sentence, son.
But also, 30 can be really good, and 30 can also be really bad.
30 interceptions. And they ended, like, this is the real thing. His last play was a pick six, I want to say. I'm pretty sure. His last play was a pick six. And he's thrown like 6 or 7 of them in last year. I'm sorry. I'm done. He's back up, maybe third string somewhere. Send his ass to San Diego.
I think he could. Okay, so I'll say this. I think he can be a solid backup option.
Right.
Solid backup. Like, your starter goes in, gets, rocked with an unfortunate injury, and he's out for a foreseeable amount of time. I would not have any problem with putting Jameis Winston in because, like you said, 30 touchdowns, solid number. On that other side of that coin, though, those 30 interceptions are not helping you out. What I think for me, where I'm at, kind of looking at his game, he's been stagnant for so long. Like he gets to that point where he shows you, like, hey, I can win games. I can manage a field. But then in that same game, 2 drives later, he's showing you, don't put the ball in my hands because I'm not going to deliver. So it's so beyond frustrating because because he's still young enough to where you think, like, okay, he's right there. He's about to turn that corner. Mm-hmm. But then again, he throws that pick six or he fumbles that ball for the second or third time in the game. And at this point, I think he is a solid option for a team that is sitting with a starter right now that they're not 100% confident in.
So, San Diego. Tyrod Taylor.
Now, I'm going to say this. I think, and this is just I'm kind of pulling this out of thin air, and not, there's no, like, rumors or anything about this. This is just a hunch for me. Mm-hmm. The Pittsburgh Steelers have not really put in any stock into their backup ever. Like, I mean, Mason Rudolph.
O-State, shout out. Sorry.
Shout out to O-State. Mason Rudolph, and then I don't even remember the guy's third string guy that they had.
It was that Dodge dude. Remember they had the duck thing going on?
Yes, okay.
He had a duck call.
Right, yeah,
He threw a couple of touchdowns. He also threw a couple of picks. They both were bad.
Right. So I would say the 2 teams that stand out from my mind for a solid backup option, I would say Pittsburgh because, Ben's not getting any younger, and no disrespect to Big Ben, but he's not really taking care of himself the way Tom Brady takes care of himself. So
he's B.I.G. Ben.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
He is Rick Ross Ben. Oh.
Yeah. Well, got the beard, solid beard game.
Yeah.
His beard game is on point.
He can run around West Virginia and some mountains and stuff. He'd be all right.
Correct. Yeah, he can Daniel Boone it in the mountains, but on the football field, I don't know. Maybe another year, maybe this year. But yeah, after that, who's left? And so I think Winston could really go in there and possibly get himself back into a starting role, just depending on Roethlisberger's trajectory on how he's going to finish his career. And then the only other spot that I can think of where you have a starter but you still don't really know what you got is in Jacksonville with Gardner Minshew. Like, they kind of, like, pretty much have committed to him as the starter because they, Nick Foles went and signed with Chicago. So it's Minshew's job to basically lose. I think it does nothing but push Minshew to really elevate his game if you bring in somebody who's already been a starter for a decent period of time. And I think it'd be healthy competition for Winston too, putting him in a position where he's not that far removed from taking a starting position if he proves himself week in and week out. So I would say Pittsburgh, possibly Jacksonville for Jameis Winston, but I still think he can hang in. I mean, let's put it to you this way. If Brady Quinn made the career he did on being a backup quarterback, Jameis Winston can for sure hang around the league as a backup quarterback for many, many years to come and possibly even sneak in a couple more games under center as a starter.
Brady got the pretty face, though. Jameis is pretty ugly.
Yeah, I mean, starting off your year stealing crab legs, too, isn't the best way to go, isn't the best intro into your professional career. But, I mean, at this point, that's all in the past. But the 30 for 30, man, the memes that came out of that from the 30 for 30 ESPN, dude, that was the internet was so golden at that point. I was dying. I thought it was hilarious, but who knows? I mean, if he signs somewhere else, like I said, I think he can still compete for a spot to potentially get under center. But I mean, time will tell.
Can I rewind?
For sure.
Back?
Yeah.
You said the name Gardner.
Dude, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. When you said the name Gardner Minshew, I remembered. I don't know if you got that story because it was kind of big. He got offered by Pornhub to do a yoga class or something like that.
Yeah. Are you serious?
$1 million, and he turned it down. So he will not be getting the award of my wingman anytime soon.
Foreshadowing for later in the episode. All right, so for me, for free agency, I had a couple notes down. So obviously, us being Cowboys fans, I would love to get biased right now. Let's talk about our Cowboys real quick.
I can already hear the Stephen A. song, "The Accident Waiting."
Yeah, bro. Okay. So here's my thing. I'm actually gonna do a different spin because we all know the whole Dak no contract situation still, and you kind of touched on that a little here. You, for as long as you've known me as a friend and as a fellow Cowboy fan, what have I always said has been our biggest problem on the field?
Oh, God, you're going to put me on the spot.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Yeah, I forgot to mention I'm putting you on the spot.
I want to say, you're going to say secondary?
Correct, sir.
Yeah.
God almighty, that secondary. Okay, so in saying that, and I've always said, we haven't had a secondary that was as deadly since Roy Williams was murdering people across the middle of the field.
Right.
Or prime time.
Terrence Newman.
Terrence Newman as well.
Terrence.
Shout out to Kansas State.
Yeah. Big 12 in the house.
So the big problem that I have right now, or I guess the question that I'm going to pose to you is, so obviously we didn't bring back Byron Jones.
Right? I'm going to cry, man.
Now Miami goes and signs him. Not only do they sign him, they make him the highest paid defensive back in the league.
He's that good.
So that was my question. This is my question. Is he really that good, or is the front office of the Dallas Cowboys really that stingy because they wanted to sign Amari to that ticket, and they're probably going to give Dak that money? Is it more a question of his talent, or is it more a question of we just need to put the money elsewhere?
We're talking about Byron, right?
Correct.
I think, honestly, he covered up a lot of our crap. Covered up a lot of our crap because if you notice during the season, especially during last season when they put him at that traditional cornerback, that side of the field was shut off for sometimes. I mean, obviously you'll have your Alshon Jeffries and all that. Alshon Jeffrey, your Julio Jones and all those people that are going to get their ball. They're going to get their catches.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you to an extent. I'm going to be 50-50 with a lot of these Cowboy topics because I understand where they're going, but also as a fan, like, come on. He should have been one of our mainstays, him and our linebacker core, which is, by the way, probably one of the best in the league. I'm just going to throw it out there.
For sure.
But it don't matter if you ain't got no DBs. And going into that, I'll just let everybody know if they don't know, we did pick up Clinton Dix safety.
I saw that.
Here's the problem. He ain't been good since like 2016.
Oh, man.
Because they were getting torched in Green Bay a couple years ago. That's why they got rid of everybody.
Right. They turned a new leaf completely. So now, okay, going to your point and to Jones's credit, you're on the side of you do think he is that good. Is he worth highest paid defensive back in the league good?
No.
Okay. So that was my thing as well, was I was actually shocked that Miami handed him that title with that contract. Now, I mean, once I saw it, I was like, hey, man, good for you. Like, make your money.
Get that bag.
Secure that green for sure. But once I saw that contract, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit better about this because, yes, I think he is talented, and I think he's probably, out of the whole league, would I put him in the upper half for the cornerbacks in the league? Yeah, I'd probably put him in that upper half echelon for sure. But once he signed that ticket with Miami, I was like, okay, there's no way
Pressure's on.
There was no way we were going to be able to give him that kind of money. So I think it just was I think a lot of players, not just on the Cowboys roster, more so in the league this year in free agency, a lot of players have been victim of circumstances based on other players on their roster needing to get that ticket. So, I mean, was I like completely bummed out that he left? Like, I wasn't completely heartbroken because at the end of the day, like, our secondary still needed to be addressed even with him on it. So at this point, it's kind of just like, okay, I feel like this is just a revolving door issue for the Dallas Cowboys since like basically 2008, 2009. So I mean, again, and you said it, signing HaHa Clinton Dix, it addresses that there was a vacancy on the roster, but it doesn't mean our problems are gone by any means.
And going back, I hate to jump on this other team, but I got to jump on them for being jackasses, and that's the Miami Dolphins. Because if you remember, they just got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. They traded him in midseason to the Steelers. What are you doing? What is your goal? And I have the same thing with Jerry Jones. What is your goal? What's the end game?
Exactly. Yes. What is your – run me through that logic real quick, because I don't know if there was any in that move. When Minkah Fitzpatrick was drafted, I was actually deployed, and I had a buddy of mine on my deployment team, very big Dolphins fan.
Okay.
And this guy, but not only is he a Dolphins fan, he's an even bigger college football fan. So he is very well versed in. What's that?
Was he a U fan, Miami fan?
No, he's actually, I forget what his primary college team is, but it's not Miami. I think it's a WAC team, to be honest with you. I can't remember. I'll have to hit him up and ask him now that you asked me. But regardless, he was so stoked when they drafted Minkah Fitzpatrick. He was like, "Oh my God, this kid is such a stud. He's gonna be all over the field.
Smart.
He's gonna make so many plays." Right, that's what he was saying. He was like, "This guy is so intelligent.
Cerebral.
It's ridiculous. He knows exactly where he needs to be. He's so good at reading the quarterback. He's fast. He's athletic. The complete package, right?" And then all of a sudden, like, granted, he might have had a problem with like the coaching staff or the front office, right? Okay, so who doesn't? Like, everyone in any organization is a human. You're not going to like every single person you play with or get coached by. So when a player goes to management and says, like, "Hey, I'm having this issue," just me here, if he's like one of the top 3 guys on your team, the first thing I'm doing is not saying, "Where do you want to be traded to?" or, "Okay, I'll deal you. I'll let you know when I got a deal on the table." It was just baffling to me that they got rid of him so fast when he was that good.
Yeah. And then obviously jumping back to the Cowboys, it's interesting because the defensive front that they doubled down. Dontari Poe, Gerald McCoy, Alvin Smith. Now you double down on the line. Yeah, we did lose some guys, but I feel like the line was secured. You got D-Law to a deal. He got a deal.
Yep.
You got the linebacker core. I mean, I know that's different from the D line, but you secure in that area. It was really the secondary that we needed to get.
The secondary hasn't been addressed properly, like I said, since like 2008, 2009, when Terrence Newman was still here, holding down that back end.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, I'll always be a huge Roy Williams fan, but those guys are both long gone. And ever since, I mean, until we drafted Byron Jones and he was able to blossom into what he is now, we really had nobody. It was just a revolving door of guys that were just throwing on jerseys. And at one point, I think I was so frustrated as a fan, I even told you, I was like, "Dude, you play defensive back in high school, man. Like, get out there. Like, Christ, go out there and help out." Because at this point, they need everybody and anybody that is an able body to get out there. It was that bad.
I'll say this. I don't know if you remember a certain player that I disliked named Brandon Carr. But he was by far
number 39, Brandon Carr.
He took all the money from us and just sucked ass.
Yeah, they signed him to a huge ticket, and then he was like, "Thanks, appreciate you. I'll see y'all on the flip side." And then
y'all want me to cover that guy?
I'm pretty sure he's proceeded to get cut by almost every team he's been on thereafter.
He had a small run with Baltimore. I say small. small rim of Baltimore, but that's it.
Didn't he end up going to? So he went to somebody else too, didn't he?
Yeah, I want to say he bounced a little bit.
Yeah. So last thing I want to talk about the Cowboys. I guess there's a 1 and a 1A topic I want to cover. And again, it's not the Dak thing because everyone at this point is kind of already, he's going to get paid at some point,
money this year, that's for damn sure.
For sure. Number one, how concerned are you now with Travis Frederick stepping away? Is there any concern with our O-line?
That steel curtain of an O-line, hate to steal it from the Pittsburgh, but that steel curtain of an O-line, not looking so steel anymore. Travis Frederick damn near almost died.
There is an official kink in our armor, to say the least, for sure. I'm not in panic mode about it yet because we still have, 3 of the top offensive linemen in the game.
Yeah.
But there's a gap now, and there's big shoes to fill. Not only just in production, but leadership role. He was one of the captains for the last 2 years, I believe, if not 3.
You could tell there was a fall off when he got hurt.
Oh, for sure.
What was that, 2 years ago when he got that? When he got sick, you could definitely tell there was a fall off because you got the young quarterback, and you need a center. You need somebody in his ear saying, "Hey, don't forget about that linebacker right there. Don't forget about that corner blitzing to the right." He was so good at that, and now there's a void. And now we're asking, not to go back to Dak, now we're asking Dak to be this 20 to 30 to $40 million quarterback. Right. And he didn't even have his best offensive, not his best offensive lineman.
Right, we're taking assets away from him.
Yeah.
At this point. Okay, and then the last little thing, I'll get off my Cowboys pedestal. I mean, again, we're biased, but I like to try and be open-minded. But something that's a little sensitive to me right now, I don't know how I'm going to take seeing Jason Witten wearing another jersey other than the Dallas Cowboys, man. That shit hurt. That shit hurt. And now, exactly, right? Because now he's got that itch that can't be scratched now, right? Like, we were supposed to be in there this season. It was supposed to be a more promising playoff picture for us. And now he's back in, and he's like, well, crap, I already invested some more time, so what's another kick at the can, right? What's one more?
But to the Raiders, though? It's the Raiders, right?
Yes, the Raiders, man. But you know how much John Gruden praised that man. Praised him up and down all night. I'm just shocked at this late in the game. I mean, I guess I kind of have to take that back because when you've given everything you have to this point, you have the right to be stingy, be selfish.
Oh, definitely.
So, but I mean, the Raiders though. You think the Raiders are going to get you to the Super Bowl?
Shit, he's just going down there to gamble. Las Vegas Raiders. He's just going down there to gamble.
Hopefully, the wife was just like, I just want to go to Vegas.
You're right.
I mean, aside from that, I don't know. For any football reasons, I don't know why you would pick the Raiders.
This is the same team that just a couple weeks ago was talking about replacing Derek Carr with Tom Brady. So clearly, they don't even have a plan as to who they want the quarterback team.
So that's going to lead me into so I think real quickly just to wrap up some NFL stuff on the free agency side, I'm going to give a team that I think looks good just based off the moves they've made, and then one team that I think doesn't look so good or looks confused or lost, and then we'll share our 2 teams from both of those categories.
Okay.
So I'll share my team that I think looks good. I wrote a couple of them down, but I'll pick one of them. I think the Cardinals made some phenomenal moves, man. The Arizona Cardinals in acquiring DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that move alone, and I mean for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, talk about that trade. What the hell, dude?
Pennies on the dollar. Like, the fact that they were able to get that caliber of a receiver for what the Houston Texans can only hope and pray that there's a miracle that they draft the next Tom Brady in the 4th round, even though Brady was a 6th-round pick. I mean, I'm still scratching my head over it. Like, I don't get the logic behind that.
I have logic.
You have some logic with it? Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, I feel like O'Brien, I think that's the coach's name.
Bill O'Brien.
I feel like he was in his Tyrone Biggums moment where he needed crack, and they offered it, and he was like, he just went and got it. It just, take whatever you want.
Yeah, honestly. And then I do like the fact that they went out and then signed Kenyon Drake and DJ Foster. on contracts as well for their backfield, because they did get David Johnson was part of that deal. David Johnson now goes over to the Houston Texans, so they give up their starting running back, but David Johnson was already having injury problems already,
Right.
and man, that's like same old song and dance for the Houston Texans, just having a guy in the backfield that's got all the talent in the world, but just injury prone. Arian Foster was a beast, but man, did that guy struggle with injury problems. And so now you're just putting another guy in there that's got a lot of talent when he's healthy, but you're basically rolling the dice to hope that he can stay in for 16. Well, now what is it? They changed it to 17 weeks now officially for next season. That's a whole other topic for a different day. But so me personally, and just kind of like evaluating some teams and just looking at the moves that have been made, I really think the Arizona Cardinals have set themselves up well with Kyle Murray being under center, still incredibly young, incredibly athletic and talented. Larry Fitz has been his one. Shout out to Oklahoma. Larry Fitz is a phenomenal guy to throw to, such a future Hall of Famer. He's been mentoring that young quarterback, but now to truly give a deep threat number one to him, and Larry Fitz can finally, for once in his career, just be like, I don't have to have the whole entire workload on my shoulders on this receiving core. Like, Larry's earned that right, and I think Larry's going to have one of his better years yet, because he's going to thrive in being a nice up the middle guy. Mm-hmm. So that's just one that looks good to me. Who do you think outside of our Cowboys, just because we have to be homers? But
I got two, man. Obviously, the obvious one is Tampa Bay. I mean, you
naturally
put Tom Brady with Chris Godwin and I forget his
Mike
name.
Williams.
That's just who's gonna beat that? He doesn't have to throw down the field, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know if Brady has had a receiver core like this since he had Randy Moss.
Mm-hmm. And West.
2-3 years in New England that he was there. The fact that I don't know how true the rumors were, but I heard the rumors were that Ndamukong Suh was ready to walk away and reject whatever Tampa Bay was going to give him. And then once he found out that Brady was signing, he was like, "I'll throw me a contract, throw me a number," and he signed for a year deal. And then reports were coming in. Adam Schefter, I believe, reported saying, like, now that Brady is officially signed in Tampa, like, players, free agents are calling Tampa saying, like, I want to play on this team. So, I mean, that's a really good problem to have when you got free agents calling you saying they want to be on the team. So, for sure, the Bucs have gotten tremendously better. And, I really want to. I think in the future, we definitely should talk about that move a little bit more, because I'm very intrigued in the way Brady went about making that decision. But what is your other team that you were thinking of?
Yeah,
that really looks good?
It was a big pickup, and it kind of slipped under the radar, because I want to say the Colts were going for Tom Brady, and they kind of jumped out.
Yeah.
But Phillip Rivers to the Colts.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, it's nasty. It's going to slip under the radar. But if you think about it, Houston just got rid of their best player.
Yep.
Their second, they just got rid of their best wide receiver. Yep. What are you expecting from Jacksonville? And I don't even know what's the other team that's in that league, in that division.
Houston,
Tennessee.
Tennessee's like the real big threat at this point. Yep.
That's about it. Yeah. But you can easily win that division. Not easily, but you can win that division or get a wild card. A wild card looks, the Colts, the sleepers. They're my sleepers right now.
100%.
That was a good move.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really think the whole Brady thing really overshadowed Rivers' signing. What I'm intrigued with is you signed Rivers to the deal, but you got what's his name? The guy who's been there, Jacoby Brissett, who has been producing and doing fairly decent since Luck had stepped away. So now what happens to him? Where are the Colts willing to move away from Brissett now and maybe kind of hit the reset?
Is there a market for him though? That's what I wonder.
Exactly. Especially because you got Newton and Winston waiting in the wings. Exactly. If you were to have, let's say the Colts are willing to move on from him or willing to make a deal, out of those three quarterbacks that I just named, Winston, Brissett, and Newton, you got to think Brissett's still the number 2 option behind Newton.
Yeah.
So who's going out of their way to go and sign him if he becomes a free agent?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting for sure, because who's to say Brissett doesn't overpower Rivers in training camp battle. And then is Rivers okay with sitting down? Being a backup?
Well, he ain't.
No, exactly. So, it's almost like the Colts have handcuffed themselves in this scenario where you are forced to start Phillip Rivers, and now are you trying to keep Brissett around because you want him to be a reliable backup, or are you willing, or, does now he take it offensively? And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think you're right. I do think there's some scary potential for that team because Rivers is a proven winner. He may have not have had all the accolades and success as some of the other guys from his era, but he's a battler. He leaves everything on the field, man. And I love his attitude. He does not.
I used to hate it.
Shit. I used to too.
Hate it.
I was like, dude, this guy's cocky for no reason. But he's his own hype man. Like he's just in it to win it.
The game where he and Jay Cutler got us a throwback. This might have been like 6 or 7 years ago. There was a Monday night game or a Sunday night game where he and Jay Cutler were just talking trash from 50 yards away on the other side, And I was like, awesome. I love this. I hate Jay Cutler. Now I like Phillip Rivers.
I really think there's some upside for Indianapolis there for sure. All right, now let's look at the other side of that coin. Some teams that, based on their moves that they made or lack thereof, you're concerned with, or you're just completely lost and don't even know how to address it. So for me, I wrote down 3 teams that kind of really stand out to me. I kind of almost talked about one earlier, so I'll kind of just throw out 2. So I kind of addressed that. For me, if I'm a fan, I'm concerned that Pittsburgh has not addressed the backup quarterback situation, which I feel like should have been done about 2 years ago already.
Right.
So for me, that's kind of a big issue because, again, we know that position can make or break a whole entire organization, and the fact that there almost seems to be no plan in place whatsoever, that's concerning to me if I'm a fan. So that team for me is on that list of teams that I don't think really knows what's going on or what direction they want to go. And then last but not least, those New York Jets, man. Oh God!
Yeah, that stuff when they got the quarterback that they got. That's
Sam Darnold.
Garbage.
Sam Darnold. All right. I'm not ready to say that he's garbage, but boy, oh boy, have you not done a damn thing to help that kid out?
Well,
and I'm telling you, it starts from the GM all the way down. His offensive line is garbage.
Mm-hmm. His receiving core is garbage too.
I was literally just about to say, I can't even tell you their number 1 starter. I don't, for a wide receiver. I have no idea. And I love that. I'll just go back and throw a little caveat in there. Again, this is guys okay at talking sports. Like, even on our best day, we're like moderately productive / intelligent.
You ain't gonna hear me talking about yards per gain or anything or shooting percentage.
Shockingly, it might come as a shock, or it might come as a surprise to anyone that's listening, but neither Brandon or I have any experience in the analytic department. And I know that probably
shocking
people, it's just shocking off factor right there. Yeah, no one's going to be throwing you insane, crazy numbers, yards per game, yards after the catch. Yeah, none of that. I can just tell you he looks good when he plays, or something's wrong and he's not producing. That's what we can tell you. So yeah, those 2 teams for me. New York Jets, just for me, I think it's just the lack of really addressing main positions. So the lack of addressing the offensive line and giving Sam Darnold a steady, reliable target. There's nobody there that stands out on that wide receiver core. And I think, going back to the point we said earlier, throwing these young kids into
the fire, man.
Into the fire. And it'd be one thing if they're thrown into the fire with solid number 1, number 2 wide receivers and a stacked O-line where you felt comfortable enough that this kid's not going to get rocked, and at least he can scramble around a bit if he had to find a person who will get open. Sam Darnold has neither of those 2 things, and I think it's going to The only thing that the Jets have going from them in this offseason is that Tom Brady left the AFC East. That is about
It's
it.
open. Wide. Well, I mean, it ain't wide open, but it's open.
But it's open. It's officially open. So those are my two teams. So go ahead and why don't you shoot me your one or two teams that.
Before I piggyback on, before I get my team, let me piggyback and say that any man can still catch a mono at his age, which I don't even know. People probably catch mono all the time, but I just imagine he just walked through Times Square and tried to share a straw with every motherfucker out there.
When that report came out, I was like, oh man, he must have done like a Buddy the Elf, where he picks the gum off the railing and he eats the gum in the movie Elf. That's all I could think of. I was like, oh, did Sam pick the gum off? Like, he had to, like, how do you get, like, we've almost eradicated that thing. Like, how do you even catch that? Like, yeah.
I haven't heard the word mono or mononucleus since high school. Like,
it's probably been since like 7th, 8th grade for me.
Like,
yeah,
come on, man.
Puzzling.
You nasty mofo. Come on. Okay, so anyway, going back. My team, it's got to be, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I am a big fan of Deshaun Watson, and I just don't understand what O'Brien's doing.
Yeah.
Getting rid of his main target, one of the best wide receivers. He's a top 5 wide receiver, in my opinion. And if he's not top 5, he's at least a top 10 in the league right now.
100%.
But
Deshaun, that the second that deal was made, Watson's probably on the phone with JJ Watt, like, bruh.
Or he's on the phone with his agent. He's like, hey, it might be time we start looking around.
Yeah. Hey, kind of just keep your ear to the ground and let me know if there's any rumblings. So, but I mean, I
see an article here. I see an article here for Battle Red Blog, and this is 12 hours ago. They're saying that DeAndre Hopkins was on the trading block for more than a year. I don't know if this source is credible.
More than a year?
But if that is true, oh my God.
Golly, bro. And now, how do you... And then if there's any validity to that, you had him on the trading block for a year, and the GM couldn't get a deal. You couldn't deal DeAndre Hopkins having the seasons he had for over a year. That's probably even more concerning, because you probably could have gotten at least a first round out of him.
Anything. They just got a couple. They got a box of old Pokemon cards for DeAndre Hopkins. It's like, what are y'all doing? And not even good. It's like
I refreshed the page because I thought for sure it was a typo. I mean, pennies on the dollar, literally pennies on the dollar, to get rid of him.
And so now Arizona can go get one of these cats. They can go get Jerry Jeudy. They can go get my boy CeeDee Lamb. They can go have a nice little core with Larry Fitzgerald.
For sure. Or take that extra money that you saved by getting a number one and a wide receiver in a trade, and maybe beef up that offensive line.
Yeah.
So you give Murray more time, more protection in the pocket.
Saying running around like a chicken with his head cut off.
That poor kid, man. But all right, so we kind of were a little all over the place with the NFL free agency, but it's been that way though. It's been very unpredictable. And if you would have told me DeAndre Hopkins would have been traded to Arizona for a David Johnson and a handful of picks going back each way, if you would have told me Tom Brady was going to be a Buccaneer after leaving the Patriots, if you were to tell me that Byron Jones was going to be named the highest paid defensive back by the Miami Dolphins, and that Phillip Rivers was going to be the potential starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts at the beginning of last season, just as like someone looked into a crystal ball and they said, hey, all this is going to happen, I would have said you're absolutely nuts. And I think the free agency...
Get off the pipe, sir.
Correct, yes. Stay off the weed. So I think it's been one of the craziest free agencies we've seen in a hot minute. So it's been entertaining.
It's kept us entertained.
Correct.
With everything going on with no sports.
Hopefully we'll get to revisit these deals and these moves and signings more so in the future, because these guys are actually playing out. Right. And I hope the season continues. So that being said, also something I hope to see take place this year, is our two beloved sports, the NHL and the NBA, that we get to see some playoffs and we get to see trophies handed out at the end of this season.
Please, baby.
So we'll start with the. Why don't you take it away with the NBA? Why don't you go ahead and lead us up? Yeah, I'm gonna flip it over to you. So
NBA standings. I'm just gonna touch up on the NBA standings and a potential. Now, if they start up, if it gets to later, like we're talking about, I want to say late May, June-ish, they'll have to go straight to the playoffs. There's no ifs, ands, but if they even do it, right off the bat, I'm gonna tell you, it's the battle for LA as far as the championship is. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, or it's the Lakers with LeBron. I mean, you got Kawhi and PG. You know, PG was a Thunder. For the people out there that don't know, I'm from Oklahoma City, so I'm a Thunder fan automatically. Was a Kobe fan before. FPG, not playing. With PG, and then you have Kawhi, you have LeBron with the Brow, Anthony Davis in there in LA. I think it's between those two teams as far as winning the league. And then that's on the West. At the East, you're looking at the Bucks, the Raptors, and the Celtics. It's kind of a battle. Who's who? Obviously, it's going to be the Bucks because they got that Greek freak. I'm going to try to say his name. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think.
I'll be honest with you. Not even going to come close to calling him that. I'm just going to call him Giannis because everyone knows who I'm talking about.
He's a freak. They're 53
I don't want
and 12.
to slaughter that man's name. But yeah, I'm looking at. I have the standings and the records pulled up in front of me as well, so I'm following along with you in real time here.
It's interesting. They went on a lose. They were on a 3-game slide. They were knocking on the door on a 70-game win season, which is incredible when you think about the only two other teams were the Bulls and the Warriors a couple of years ago. Right. Now that being said, the Warriors did that and they retired when they met LeBron in the finals and got that ass smacked. Not smacked, but it was 7 games. But besides that, the MVP race is going to be between LeBron and Giannis, and I have feelings about that. We can go into a whole other hour about the media having LeBron fatigue. He is the best player in the league. He can win it every year, but they want to see something different, and I think that's why you'll see Giannis win this year. And LeBron hasn't won in like 3 or 4 years. So that's really much on the. And then as far as my Thunder, I'll just touch on that since I'm a Thunder fan. We're number 5, and I will say this: I hate to bring up Rona, but the night that everything got shut down,
you and I talked that night. Actually,
the night that everything shut down, the Jazz were playing the Thunder in Oklahoma City downtown, just a couple miles from where I'm at right now. If we had won that game, we would have jumped up to the 4 seed, which would have allowed us to host a playoff series. But now, if everything stays where it is, we'll be the 5. The Jazz will be the 4. We'll have to go to Utah for the most part. So that hurts a little bit. But that is pretty much the NBA. If you got any comments, please jump in. That's pretty much the NBA summed up as far as right now.
All right. So for me, I don't really have a extensive background being an NBA fan as you do. My upbringing with basketball was my dad was always a fan of it. I remember watching the mid to late 90s basketball games where you had the really physical battles between young Kobe, young Shaq up against the Portland Trail Blazers. Yeah. Those heated playoff battles.
Yep. Rasheed Wallace. Hell
yeah. I remember even earlier on the East Coast, I remember the Celtics always getting into it with the New York Knicks with John Starks. Dude, I just remember seeing that on the TV as a younger kid. I never really gravitated toward it, but I've always just been a massive fan of sports. So I never would just run out of the room if it came on. It just wasn't my first pick. That being said, I've kind of left watching from an everyday perspective or even from a casual perspective. I really don't watch it anymore. And you and I have discussed ad nauseum, just how it's so hard for me to gravitate towards relating to that league because as an NHL fan, the game of basketball is, even at its fastest pace, is so incredibly slow. It's painful almost at times. And I know watching it on TV it doesn't even do it justice, so it makes it even worse when you're watching it on TV. But for me, kind of just looking at the standings. Now, again, I might not watch, but I know who's who in the league. I know, I stay on top of all the sports shows and, social media and whatnot. And you and I talk all the time. So I'm fairly familiar with most of the big stars in the league and kind of who's decent, who's not type of thing. So for me, what I am really concerned with, or not, I shouldn't say concerned with, but what I don't appreciate about the league is there is absolutely zero parity in this league whatsoever, man.
No.
Zero parity. Like, this is it. Like, just to prove my point, as it stands right now, if we were to go right into playoffs right now, like tomorrow, playoffs started, you have the Brooklyn Nets in the 7th seed at 30-34.
Oh my God! Just saying them in the playoffs.
The 8th seed Orlando Magic at 30-35. Shout out to Penny Hardaway and Shaq back in the day. That was my team.
There you go.
NBA Jam, not a big deal. And then and then in the West, you have the 8th seed Memphis Grizzlies at 32-33. And those three teams are your 7th and 8th seed playoff teams for the East and the West. And it is, I'm just going to say it, it's a joke that the league even allows any team to make the playoffs that's not 500.
Under 500, bro. They're not even 500.
Exactly. They're under. All those teams are under 500. The closest is the Grizzlies at 32-33. They're a .492 win percentage.
There's been a push. I will say this. There's been a push to make it just the best 16 teams get in. And the only issue with that is the travel. Because you could see the Lakers, like, I mean, you could see the Lakers have to travel to Brooklyn or to Philly.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
That just drives home the point that every game matters.
Yes. That
you know what I mean? Like,
season,
so
yes.
that would kind of probably address the issue of load management.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I mean, we could do a whole show on that. That is.
It's the reason why I don't go to the big games anymore.
Dude, it is brutal, man. Brutal. You are getting paid. The fact that someone that's getting paid, I mean, I'm gonna have to lean on you on this one. Like, what is LeBron bringing in roughly right now?
He is close. Let me look that up. I want to say he's a max player. Let me see. I will say while I'm looking that up that I stopped going to big games because I don't want to spend $360 to $500 to not see the best player, whoever it is. He's making $37.44 million a year.
And I think he signed
that's
a
just
3-year
salary.
deal, 4-year deal.
He signed. I want to say it was a 3 year
that's not even any.
option.
That's not
Remember,
even.
he has that lifetime contract with Nike.
Correct.
So he's getting more money from that too.
So so even if we just wanted to take in his NBA salary, we're just count salary, $37 million, bro, for an 82-game season, and then however far you make into the playoffs, you're making $37 million. Unless you have got coronavirus or have got...
By the way, like, it's $434,757 per game.
That's the most analytics you are going to see out of us, like, probably ever. Kudos to Brandon for coming out. Oh, well, either way, you spat out numbers. Nobody knew. You gave yourself away. But that's the most analytics we're probably going to spit out at you. But that is so insane to me that anybody with a conscience would be like, hey, man, yeah, for this next 3-game road trip, I think it's just going to be better for me if I sit out and, just be on the bench for these next 3, just, load management. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in any of the other sports. Do guys get some random nights off? Yes. You get one. If you're on a 3-game road trip, you maybe get one. You maybe get the number 2 game out of the road trip off, or you get the number 3, so you get an extra day of rest on the coming back to the home series. But
they're not obvious about it.
Correct. You're not obvious about it, and it's nowhere near as much as the NBA is doing it.
No.
And it's. I mean, I'm actually shocked that the owners have not stepped in and said this is going to be addressed at the collective bargaining table.
Dude, they want to win. That's the problem. They want to win.
I mean, I get it, but dude, and another thing that I can't get on board with is I have been to one live basketball game, NBA game in my whole entire life. It was the Phoenix Suns against the San Antonio Spurs. This was probably around 2016, I believe. So no need to check. The Suns were still awful. I believe they had just gotten Booker. I think
that boy nasty.
Boy's good, I believe it was either his first year or second year. I'm not entirely too sure, but I know there was a lot of hype around him. He's obviously in the lineup playing. The Spurs had essentially their whole entire second lineup like on the floor. Every major star for the Spurs were on the bench. We were sitting up in.
They started that shit, by the way.
Oh, I know they did. Yeah. So we were in like the nosebleeds, whatever, right? Our tickets, I think, were only like $28 a piece or $30 a piece, something like that, which I was totally okay with paying. And then I got there, and another thing that just drives me nuts about this league, dude, the stop and start shit. Holy hell, man. Holy hell.
Timeout. There's 12 timeouts total.
Oh my god.
And then you have to,
bro.
And then don't forget about the media timeouts.
If you look at a guy the wrong way, you're getting a charging foul. Mm-hmm. And then just everyone's taking their time to get the ball back in action, and just the refs need to look at each other 8 times to make sure they're good. And oh my god, dude, I was just like, what are we doing? Like, I'm verbalizing all of this. I was like, what is happening right now?
It's an hour and a half to 2 hour game that takes 3 hours.
Correct, dude. And so I was so annoyed. And then I'm like, I can't believe they're charging this much money to come see this game. I looked up floor seats for that night. Now, mind you, this is a Tuesday night game. Tuesday night. And I think at best this was like halfway through the season, if anything. This was before the All-Star break. So
we already knew they were bad, weren't going to make the playoffs.
Correct. Well out of it already. It's a Tuesday night. Even if they were playing the Spurs, it's still a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Floor seats for that game. How much do you think they were?
Because it's Phoenix, and because I know that the floor seats here are usually rough, at least hit like $1,500. But then again, I don't know. I would say probably 2,000. They
were 1,200.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean,
the fact that you just said not that bad makes my skin crawl, man. Brandon, when would you or I ever be able to go do that? And this is a Tuesday night before the All-Star break, bro. And also, FYI, you're the Phoenix Suns. You haven't crawled out of 14th or higher at that point in like 4 seasons. You have no right whatsoever to charge. Now, I understand there's a certain clientele in that area that allows you to charge a higher ticket price because Phoenix is very close to Scottsdale, which has a lot of money. So I get that. If you can get away with something like that, okay. But when you don't win,
you can't charge $1,200.
You can't charge your average fan $1,200, sir. Like, that's just, again, walk me through that logic. Like, there's a reason why your arena's like looking like the rodeo instead of a complete packed house. Like, it was just baffling to me. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And so those are two of the biggest things for me that just really irritated me about the league, is that there's so much stop and start for no reason. It seems like it's not as quick as the game could be. It seems like it's been slowed down so much. It's not as physical as it used to be either. And the ticket pricing is just absolutely outrageous. I think it's criminal how much these teams are charging for these games. It's insane.
Right.
Now, what I will say, it's not all bad. What I do think the NBA has done a really, really good job with, and almost all the other sports recognize it, is they have done a phenomenal job of globalizing their sport.
Oh my God, they're kings of that. As far as sports wise,
it's incredible. Like it's almost up there with soccer or football, depending on where you're at in the globe. But it's insane the global reach that this game has, and I really think a lot of the other teams are looking to them to get some guidance, because ultimately, like, any professional athlete that plays this particular sport wants to help grow that game in some way. And globalizing that is definitely one of those ways. And I think a lot of the other major leagues are turning to the NBA to try and get it to that level. So I will tip my cap to the NBA for that, because I think they've done a phenomenal job help globalizing and global marketing their sport. All right.
Let's move on to your sports.
To my repertoire, to my area of expertise. I am so saddened at the current state of affairs. And again, I hope, for both of our sakes and sports fans everywhere, we're seeing playoffs for all of our sports sometime this year. But I'll just kind of run down right now. If we started playoffs tomorrow, because of the pandemic that's going on, if we were forced to just roll right into playoffs, currently right now you would have the Washington Capitals taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. That would be a 1 versus wild card 1 seed. You would then have the Boston Bruins taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's a 1 seed taking on the wild card 2 seed. Then you would have your 2 versus 3 matchups. So that would be out of the Metropolitan Division, Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is a phenomenal rivalry in the game. So that would for sure be a great series right out of the gate. And then on the Atlantic side, you would have Tampa Bay versus Toronto. And so those are the matchups, first-round matchups for the East Coast. And then switching over to the West, currently as it stands right now, we would have St. Louis matched up against Nashville, which is a rivalry on the West Coast. I was fortunate enough to see that playoff matchup, and that was thoroughly entertaining. So another great rivalry right out of the gate. Then the other number 1 seed out of the Pacific Division would be Vegas. They would be paired up against Winnipeg, which would be the wild card 1 series.
Vegas again, huh?
They're finding ways, man. They are they drafted incredibly well for that expansion draft.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen in any sport, and I don't know if there's been any teams in the NBA, have you ever seen a team be created and then immediately have an impact on a league like that?
No, so just to give you an idea, and I'll have to come back to actually give you the number and pull it up. But just for example, so when the Ottawa Senators came into the league in '92, I believe, I don't think they won more than 15 games out of an 82-game season.
Ooh.
It was rough. And dare I say, they might not have even gotten into the teens at all. It was horrendous. So the league has definitely done a lot better of a job of any of the expansion teams that are coming in. There is a better system for the expansion draft available. They don't have it as hard as some of the teams that came in the mid to early 90s did, or even late 80s. So they definitely had an advantage, but you still have to build that roster the right way. You still have to hire the right coaching staff, as you do in any sport. And they just did a tremendous job. And the roster they have has just been producing. So awesome for that fan base to be able to not have to suffer and quote unquote, pay their dues or whatever. But like any organization, it's going to happen at some point. At some point, you will experience a very deep low for your team, and you will pay your dues at some point. So enjoy it now, Vegas, because it will come at some point. And then the last 2 versus 3 matchup out of the Pacific would be Edmonton and Calgary. And for anybody that is not really a diehard hockey fan, this would be one playoff series I would implore you to sit down and watch, because I can't stress to you the hatred that these two clubs have for each other. And now I'm biased being a Massachusetts boy. The Boston Bruins and the Montreal Canadiens rivalry, I think, is one of the greatest in sports. It goes back.
That's the first rivalry I ever not witnessed, but I ever okay.
Oh, dude.
When I moved up there.
Bad blood. So basically, the Bruins Canadiens is the Eastern Conference biggest rivalry, in my opinion. And then when you look at the West Coast, what are the biggest rivalries? Back in the day, I probably would have told you, when Detroit was still in the Western Conference, it probably would have been Detroit and the Colorado Avalanche in the mid-'90s. There was nothing but hatred between those two organizations. Edmonton and Calgary are reigniting the Battle of Alberta, is what it's known as. And there is bad blood. There is so much tension. There is so much hatred. There's so much just grudges being held against each other outside of the rink. It would make for a phenomenal matchup in the first round. So the matchups in the first round would be really, really great as they are set up right now. Unfortunately,
the Red Wings, right?
Correct, yeah.
They suck.
Yeah, they are
They
brutal.
suck. 17 wins?
Now, yeah, man, it's tough. So 2 years ago, they had their playoff streak snapped. They made it as an organization to the playoffs. I think they ended at 21 straight years, 22 straight years. Yeah, so they had a run. They were the New England Patriots of the NHL for quite some time. And they had cup wins to back it up as well. Their most recent one coming in 2008 was their last Stanley Cup win. And then in the 90s, they did back-to-back Stanley Cup wins as well. So they had a phenomenal stretch where they had enjoyed a lot of success. So unfortunately now for that, like we said, what goes up must come down, and they're just experiencing that whole rebuild, reset mode. So they're about 2 years into that, and they're on the up for sure. I mean, I know their record doesn't maybe scream that at you, but they are making the right moves, and they do have some cornerstone pieces in place to help get them even further than where they are now for sure. But
so who are your top? Let's go. Your top 5 teams, starting with the least to greatest, that could win the Stanley Cup right now.
Okay. So number 5 for me, I am going to say. I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Lightning, number 5. Okay. So we're currently right now they sit
nice record.
They sit number 2 in the Atlantic, 43-21. The only question with Tampa Bay is they can't get over the second round hump. They have a hard time. They kind of have a hard time of getting through that hump in the playoffs. Now, they did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple years ago, but they can just never get that over that hump all the way. They get bitten with injuries late in the year at times as well. So they've struggled with some bad luck, as do most teams that late into the season. You can't expect to go in 100% healthy. Almost no team is. But where they've lacked some inconsistency is on their special teams, so their penalty killing and their power play.
Okay.
So for me, they just need to show a little bit more chemistry in their team play this late into the season. And unfortunately, at this point, you hate to say it, but it kind of just almost takes – you just need something to go right, a little more luck on your side, I think. They have some phenomenal pieces in Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov, 2 of the top 10 players in the league right now, I would say. But where they struggle is on the defensive end and upholding and defending their zone through a course of 3 periods of play has been where they struggle the most in the playoffs. So for me, they have the roster to do it. I think just a little more luck and a little more consistent play in their own end, and they could potentially snag the Stanley Cup. Number 4, I would probably go to the Colorado Avalanche, also the number 2 seed out in their division, the Central Division in the Western Conference. Colorado for many years were the Detroit Red Wings of the NHL, sitting at the bottom of the barrel, but they drafted well. In the last 5 years, they've been on a rise, and their power play is probably the most deadly I've ever seen. They have a phenomenal young defenseman on the back end, Cal McCarr, who is, shout out to the University of Massachusetts. I was fortunate enough to see him play, but he is probably one of the best young defensemen in the game right now, hands down. The kid is very, very special. He's going to be around the league a long time. So Colorado finally has gotten that playmaking ability on the back end. When you can have your defenseman jump up into a play and produce points for you, it creates so many opportunities in the scoring end. And Colorado's finally getting that with this young guy on the holding his end on the blue line, and their goaltending has finally become consistent. And that was one thing they were struggling with for a good while as well. But their roster is fully loaded, and when they're clicking on all cylinders, their penalty kill and their power play are pretty lethal, and they can make teams pay for sure. So I definitely think they're in the top 5, and I got them at number 4. If we look at number 3, I got to give credit where credit's due. Unfortunately, the St. Louis Blues defeated my Boston Bruins last year. They are the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Okay.
And they are the
42-19. That ain't bad.
That ain't bad. They're number one in their division right now. They don't show any signs of slowing down. They are probably the best put together two-way team in the league, I think. And what I mean by that is you have quite the balance of skill guys that are going to put the pucks in the net for you and create those scoring opportunities. But just as equally, you got guys that are defensive masterminds that are so responsible in their own end that they don't give you very many chances to strike back.
Right.
And they suffocate you in their defensive zone. And their goaltending has been phenomenal. They have a great goaltending tandem in Jake Allen and Jordan Bennington. Jordan Bennington being the starter. He kind of stepped in and just ran with that position and just did not look back. The kid is very well poised. He's very confident, and he will win you games. He will steal games, even when your guys up front are not performing at their best. They have a goaltender in net that can single-handedly win you or steal you a game, and that is so invaluable to have in come the postseason when you're making that deep of a run.
Okay.
So because of that, I have St. Louis at number 3. Number 2, I am going to give it and be a little biased to my Boston Bruins. I think the Bruins, shout out to my boys. Their record's insane, 44-14, 12 overtime losses or shootout losses. 100 points. They are the current President Trophy winners. If we were to go right into a playoffs, President Trophy is awarded to the team who finishes the regular season with the most points in the league. That would be them currently right now. They have the best record in the league. Again, very similar setup to St. Louis. I think that's why we saw them both in the postseason or at the Stanley Cup final last season. They are so incredibly skilled on their top 2 lines, more so on their top line, with Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and David Pastrnak.
Is Chara still there?
Chara is still there. He's still our captain.
Mofo.
He is huge. He is starting to show his age a little bit, but he can still be productive, and he's been a phenomenal mentor to our younger guys that we've drafted and brought up through the system, and he's a workhorse, man. That guy will eat up pucks in the corner. He'll block shots. He takes up so much space in the zone. So, he's still invaluable to have out there. And like I said, he's a great leader. Tuukka Rask, for my money, is probably one of the most underrated goaltenders in the league. I don't think he gets enough credit for the numbers that he puts up. And that's only because, and I'll say this time and time again, Boston is a almost unfair place to play any sport because the fan base demands so much out of you. And even like the slightest bit of wavering from your game, you're going to hear it. And I think he has unjustifiably received too much criticism and not enough credit for the way he plays. And I think he's still a phenomenal goaltender. So I think the Bruins are very well put together on the back end on defense. Their lines are good. What's really going to test them this year is, can you get production out of your third and fourth line guys come playoff time? When they won the Stanley Cup in 2011, they had the famous Merlot line because their practice jerseys were Merlot or maroon color, and those guys were some of the more clutch performers in critical games when it mattered. So when you're in playoff hockey, you need production from all 4 of your lines. Any team that can go out there and put out 4 consistent lines that are going to get you some points, that are going to shut down a power play and kill a penalty for you, those are going to be the teams that find more frequent success. There's been a question mark the whole year with those third and fourth lines for the Bruins, rotating a bunch of guys from the minor leagues up in to kind of plug and play and see where things fit. If they can dial that in, if they can harness that in, I think they have a legitimate shot to run with this thing all the way. So I have them at number 2. At number 1, I have the Washington Capitals, who are only 2 years removed from winning the Stanley Cup. And I will just say that Alexander Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer I think the league has ever seen, and that is ahead of Gretzky.
Really?
Bar none. Gretzky currently still holds the scoring title, but Alexander is on pace.
So they won last year, right?
Yes.
They're going to repeat. You're saying they're going to repeat, or you think they're the best chance of repeating?
I think they have the best chance, just strictly because I think I actually made an error. I think I said St. Louis won last year. It was Washington.
Yeah.
I apologize. So I do think they are still poised to do a repeat. And if you're kind of just looking at it from a numbers perspective, the league hasn't had a repeat cup champion since Detroit did it in back-to-back years in 97, 98, or 96, 97.
It's been that long?
I believe I'm still correct in saying that. I'll have to double-check that.
That's called parody.
Yes, correct. Again, okay at Talking Sports, okay. But either way, I think Washington with Ovechkin, his scoring touch, Nick Backstrom, one of the best passers of the game currently as it stands, and great centerman of the game as well. And their goaltender as well, Braden Holtby, has shown time and time again that he is not afraid of the big stage, that big moment, and he is a big guy. He takes up a lot of room in the net, but he is so athletic, and he's shown that clutch gene so many times and stealing a game here or there. I just think you got to give credit where credit's due. Them being so fresh off of a Stanley Cup win and them still being number one in their division the following year thereafter. I mean, that just speaks to how well put together that team is. They've made some adjustments. They've made some trades to shift a couple people over to help bolster their bottom two lines and to help increase their defensive presence as well. I really think that they are going to probably...
Does he have a Scottie Pippen?
Say again?
Going back to Ovechkin, does he have like a Scottie Pippen type?
Yeah, that's Nick Backstrom.
Okay.
He's basically been with Ovechkin pretty much his whole entire career since he's been there. I think Backstrom came in like 2 years after Ovechkin did, I believe, and he's been there the whole entire time. They both have played with each other ever since. I just think at this point, now that Ovi's tasted that ultimate victory, I think he's even hungrier than he ever was before, man. That drive is there. He's refueled, repassioned. And they're scary when they get into playoffs, man, because they got some size on that team, and they can bang you around. They can hit. Ovi runs over people. For as an elite scorer as he is, most star athletes in his position shy away from that extra physical contact because you don't want to take the chance of getting hurt, or catching a penalty. Ovechkin does not give a shit. Like, he will steamroll you if he gets a chance. He is such a big body, and he's so hard to move off the puck. And the bigger the stage, the bigger his performance. So for that, I'll give Washington their props, and I'll put them at number one to take the Stanley Cup. So that's kind of my rundown as I have it. I know that kind of took a little bit longer than we probably wanted. You did, but I wanted to be thorough and give my answer. But so real quick, I guess, like, you being like a casual fan, like, what are like some of your positive takeaways from the league that you like, and then, like, I guess one or two things that you're not a fan of or you think could improve?
I will say quickly, my knowledge of the league didn't really start until I met you guys. Especially, I don't think we said it before. We all actually went to dog training school together. We all became dog handlers.
There will be an episode just dedicated to that at some point.
We when we got back, either we got back or we were down there. We were down there because I remember we went to bikinis and all that stuff.
Yep.
That was the Bruins run, and that was
the year they won.
Yeah, I really got invested in hockey because I had to.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah,
you were sitting eating your meal and you had to watch. Yeah, exactly.
So I think, with that being said, I guess locally I should be a Dallas Stars fan.
Okay.
But I just feel like the Bruins, who, for lack of better terms, pop my cherry. So I'm always gonna gravitate, especially towards Char, that big mofo, man. I like when the big dudes get in there. Yeah. If I had a player that I probably follow, I follow PK Subban on Instagram. That's because he's a brother, and also because his spouse, she's attractive. I'll just leave it at that.
Not bad.
I would say one thing that I don't like is watching the game. Let me go back and say that I was a big hockey fan. We had a small team in Oklahoma City called the Blazers, and I can't remember what the league was. I don't want to say they were farming for anybody. I don't know if they were farming for anybody. Well,
you guys actually had the Oklahoma City Barons.
We did, yes.
Yeah. And that was that, and that's AHL, so that is like AAA system to the NHL.
Okay. Yeah, we had the Barons and the Blazers. I never went to the Barons games. I did go to the Blazers games. This is way back. We're talking like 99 to 98, 2000. Yeah.
Yep.
I love the fights, man. I love.
Yeah.
There was this one guy, number 25. He had a long, like Russian or Swedish name, and he used to always bang when I went to go watch him. I was like, heck yeah, I like this mofo. You know, the one thing I don't like, if I had to pick one, being real quick, watching on TV, that damn ice is so white, it hurts my eyes.
You have to turn the brightness down on your TV, man.
I got to do something. I will say, and going piggybacking on that, one thing that I think the NBA and the NHL have over the other core sports, even including soccer, is the announcing is always on point. The announcers, the color commentary, and it is always on point, whoever it is, regardless. And I love, like, when you watched the Stanley Cup last year when you had Charles Barkley up there talking nonsense. I love that.
Hilarious. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, piggyback, well, just to move on because we're pressed for time, let's hit the My Wingman. Real quick.
Wingman.
Yes, sir. And I'll give y'all a brief description, kind of why we say that. So obviously, like my N word is usually what usually said, and so us being in the military, we can't just be running around the base saying my, blank blank. So we would always joke and say my wingman. And sometimes we draw on that my real long. So for that, what my wingman is going to be for us is shouting out any particular player that has done something good on the court, field, pitch, whatever it is on the ice, or even off. Currently, right now, it's definitely going to be off.
Correct. Yeah, definitely.
So with that being said, I'll throw it to you for your My Wingman, and I'll have one as well.
All right. So I kind of have, because we already talked about who yours were going to be. So yeah. I kind of went opposite of that, and I'll start with the more, I guess, serious approach to it, and. So I thought it was really cool, and I know it's been across multiple leagues and multiple athletes have done it, but one of the first ones that I noticed, just because I follow the NHL pretty closely, lots of players have stepped up to donate portions of their salary to ensure that workers, either part-time or full-time, can continue to bring home a paycheck during this pandemic, where they probably would not have been able to do so because there are no games being played. So shout out to all of the professional athletes that have donated a portion of their salaries donated. I believe it was Drew Brees and his wife donated a substantial amount of money to set up some type of like food bank or something like that, or a program where school children would be ensured that they were going to have meals while this is all going down, because they're not able to go to school and get those meal programs anymore. So any athlete who's done anything like that, whether it be a charitable donation or a financial donation because of what's going on, definitely earns the My Wingman tag for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, Kyle's going to get real nice with it. I'm going to be real ratchet.
Yeah, I literally was just gonna say get ratchet with it. Get ratchet with it.
Ratchet. Yeah. My buddy. I have a friend in good old Colorado. His name is Jamal Murray. I'm sure some of y'all have heard what happened with my man. Apparently, if I can pull up the story, he went on live. That is, for you older cats, that is Instagram, where you can live video, and he decided to receive fellatio from his woman on Instagram Live. I'm just saying,
we're off the charts.
Yeah, and then she was nonchalant, like, hey, like, can you turn the camera off? So I have to give my wingman to my boy Jamal Murray, because that is some OG type shit right there. Some OG, like, I wouldn't even imagine to do that. And the fact that he did it, and I don't know if he's come out with an apology or anything.
He said his account was hacked.
Yeah, okay.
Right, which I don't know how you can hack it live, but whatever. I mean, sure, man. At that point, you just got to own it, right? Like, that would have been the best thing to do. Just own it and be like, hey, man, I just got froggy with it and whatever. Won't happen again, sorry. But the fact that he was just like, nah, man, hacked. Don't know what happened.
I don't know. That wasn't my junk, you know. Maybe y'all can look at it, but it wasn't mine. And he's like, I got a mole to the left. But yes, that is my wingman for this podcast. It would be Jamal Murray. Just he I mean, now I'm reading some other stuff now. Apparently his girlfriend doing some ratchet type shit, if you know what I mean. So we could talk about that off air.
Got it. Tracking.
Yeah, that's my wingman, and that's
I love it. Lovely nomination.
Shout out to Jamal.
Shout out to Jamal. Well, just kind of wrapping things up, I think I'd just like to end with, I am so stoked that we finally were able to get this put together. And again, I cannot stress this enough. We are just guys that are okay at talking sports. We are literally just your average Joe Blow, red-blooded Americans just sitting around talking about the sports we love and then just throwing random thoughts and seeing what sticks to the wall, if anything does at all. Now, I will say, as far as the sound quality goes, as far as maybe the structure goes a little bit, I'm sure we're going to improve as this thing goes on.
Work in progress.
Yeah, correct. This is all new to us. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're just, again, throwing things at the wall, see what sticks. Very much open to suggestions. Criticize the hell out of us. I don't really care. But I do want to get better, obviously. I mean, we will get better, and it's just going to take time. So just bear with us if the sound quality is not great, if everything was a little too all over the place for you. Maybe we can work on roping it in a little more, having a little more structure. Also, I don't know, maybe go fuck yourself and find a different podcast. I don't know. But we're open to anything and everything. So if you're listening, appreciate the time. If you're not, then cool. Yeah. But either way, I'm just stoked that we're sitting here doing this now.
It's nice, and I guess we're going to wrap it up right here.
Yeah, man.
It's been the first of many.
First of many.
Let's get it, man. We're going to end the podcast, man. Hopefully see y'all in a week.
All right.
Shout out.
Peace out.